the co-founder of Solution 8. I'm really excited for this one. So Solution 8, the number one Google Ads agency in the world. I don't know. Can I say in the world? Is that a thing? Like, are you guys like spending the most in Google among like everybody, or?
I'm not sure. I made the most amount of mistakes, that's for sure. And so I've come to I've come to kind of share my wisdom with the rest of the world, so that you can kind of fast forward for the last like kind of decade of ads experience that I have, and hopefully can kind of jumpstart your journey into higher level ways of measuring and how to set specific targets. So yeah, we spend for a little over 200 million a year in Google Ads across about 175 customers and about 170 different industries. And so, yeah, we've been doing this quite a while, and I think that there's some things that I can share with everyone to hopefully kind of think about something different than, how to contextualize the conversation between the client and yourself, set specific goals, because I think ROAS is something that has been kind of plaguing the industry for the last, at least 4 or 5 years, where we kind of set arbitrary goals. And that's what this course is about, is to teach you how to do something called CMO-level math. I've had the privilege of working with some very high levels, C-level execs of some publicly traded companies, and the ways that they measure and the ways that they track and the way that they set their targeting of their goals is something that really opened my eyes many years ago to a different way of thinking, just rather than pure ROAS on a specific channel, thinking about how to identify kind of benchmark MER efficiencies, so media efficiency ratios on channel specifics, but how to dive into their metrics first. And so what I wanted to share with you all today is piercing the veil, I guess I would say, looking past the kind of benchmarks that people think that they need. I need a 4x ROAS, I need a 5x ROAS. Why is this campaign not getting that? Why is that campaign? Or why is this channel doing this? Or why is that? And think about a way to set a very specific CAC target, very specific MER target, and set benchmarks, MER targets for each one of your channels, and measure efficiently to their bottom line, not necessarily an in-app kind of arbitrary ROAS.
That's awesome. Well, the floor is yours. And also for people that are wondering, if you want to really get all the mastery from John, he has the Solution 8 YouTube channel. It's fantastic. And they just dive in everything Google. So John, the floor is yours. Thanks so much for joining us.
Yeah, thank you for having me. I really appreciate it. Yeah, our YouTube channel is a huge value asset for everyone. I think we have over 1,000 videos on YouTube, and it's basically kind of our brain just in YouTube. So everything that I've learned, everything that I know, we try to post at least a video every few days, if not more, and just kind of share all of our content with the world. A lot of times we originally thought we were educating our competition, and it turns out we were all of a sudden our competition started hiring us for white label work. So it's been good. It's been awesome. So let's dive in. The first thing that I wanted to share with you all, and this is going to be a screen share heavy type of presentation. And so let me do this here. I'll just kind of share the window. First thing I want to share with you is some tools that we use. And this is something that should happen first, whether you're in, hair care, or if you're in medical supplies, or dog accessories, does not matter. Everything that you're going to start to measure has to happen before your campaigns can go live. Setting very specific targets based on your client is going to be much more efficient than setting a campaign level ROAS. People typically come to us and say, hey, I need a 4x ROAS. The first thing I say is why? What is our average order value? What is our purchase frequency? What is our return customer rate? What's our profit margin? And then we kind of dive deep into, you don't need a 4x. You actually be very profitable and scalable at a 2.6x ROAS. So this is how we use these tools, and a small list of tools, and obviously Northbeam is one of them, to measure efficiency. But this is how to actually look at what the client needs, and maybe even better, what the client doesn't know that they need. And so the first thing I'd like to share with you, if you're on Shopify, but you could do this kind of on back end, a Google Sheets or a spreadsheet. But one of the tools I use very, very frequently is something called By the Numbers, by the numbers here. This is a Shopify app that actually goes retroactive. So it scans the last, how your entire journey inside of Shopify to identify what is your actual metrics. First thing that you want to do is pick a timeline that is long enough. So what I'm doing is I'm looking at year-over-year performance. As I joined this customer This customer actually joined our agency last year in February. So I'm looking at this year to date so far compared to last year to date. So January 1st to June 27th. So yesterday. And then I'm looking at comparing it a year ago and then using the website channel. So this is a tool here that's going to tell you what is the total sales and the average order value, purchase frequency, and then also first-time customers. And this is where it gets very important. Most advertisers and most clients focus on ROAS, and that doesn't tell you if it's new or if it's a repeat or if it's the referral from a different channel source. Omni-channel tracking gets really messed up when you're looking at just kind of ROAS specifically by in-app. And you really can't try to gain more new customers without setting specific what they call CAC targets. CAC is cost of acquired customer. So what is it cost to acquire a first-time customer? This tool helps you identify when you're going to be profitable and what that target should be. So first thing we're going to look at is the average order value. And if it remains fairly static, 5% change year over year, that's good. We can count on consistency. So we know that there's a $45.70 average order value. What I'm going to do is I'm going to take a calculator here, and actually let me reshare the screen so that I can share the entire screen here. Do this here. There we go. And now you should see the calculator. Perfect. So we have a $45.70 average order value. Now, that is what is the average order value regardless of source, regardless of new or returning. That's important to know. The first-time customer versus returning customer versus a person that found us on TikTok or Facebook or Instagram or Google or YouTube does not matter. They all average out to about $45.70, and that does not change year over year. That's good. So we take that $45.70 average order value and we multiply that by the purchase frequency of 1.13. So multiply by 1.13. This gives us an average customer value, individual customer value of $51.64. Now, what this means is that of the people that purchase in a specific time period, let's say the first month that they purchase, the second month, there's actually going to be a returning user. So we see out of the 391,000 customers that came in January, the second month after they purchased, there was a 42,000 return customer. And then the third month after their first purchase, there's another 8,000 customers that return. So what this is developing is something called a CAC payback. When the CAC payback means after 3 months, the majority of the sales that come from that customer are spent. Now, this customer here has a 31% return customer rate. That 31% return customer rate is actually fairly common. If you hop into the back end of your Shopify, for example, if you're on Shopify or even WooCommerce or BigCommerce, your return customer rate globally, which means whether they purchased 1, 2, or 5 years ago, is going to usually be around 30 to on the 25% on the low side, 80% on the high side. And that's something that you can count on and make sure that it doesn't change year over year. When these don't change, that is good. But what we have right here is a $51.64. That's what the average customer is going to pay every year. Now, if we look at our profit margin, we have a 65% profit margin with this client. So we multiply this by 0.65. And that's going to give us a CAC target. We cannot spend over $33.56 to acquire a first-time customer, because even after 3 months and multiple purchases on average, we will not make any money. So when we're looking at how much money can we spend to acquire, that is going to be our CAC target. CAC targets are much better than ROAS, because ROAS means that if they have a good email campaign that week, ROAS is jumped up. Google's going to report a better ROAS. Facebook and Instagram is going to report a better ROAS. TikTok's going to report a better ROAS. But that's because in an omni-channel experience, meaning that they've all had their hand in a purchase path, they are going to take credit for that. So when you look at them combined globally, that's where Northbeam comes in. You can see, well, what does it actually cost you to acquire a first-time customer? So we know that there's $51 average customer value over 3 months, and we cannot spend more than $33.56. So let's put this into use. Let's look at the Northbeam application and see how do we actually take this information and now put it to good use. Well, we can see here that in the last 7 days across all media spend, our CAC, our first-time customer, is $30.20. We're $3 below that target of $33.56. That is good. We always would love this to be lower, obviously. And the CAC target is going to be solely dependent upon your average order value and your return customer rate, your purchase frequency. How often do they purchase each individual customer? When you start to take a CAC approached focus and not a ROAS approached focus, you can acquire a lot more first-time customers and spend towards this level here and ignoring the 1.6 MER, media efficiency ratio, on first-time customers. Everyone wants a 4x. That's kind of the standard in the industry. I don't know what happened in the last few years in the breakdown, but a breakdown of the communication between good advertisers and their clients. But 4x for some reason seems to be kind of where people think that they need to be. That's not necessarily true. And at 1.6 first-time customer and acquiring first-time customers, what we normally see is that the orders, obviously at scale, are good, but we see this here. When you take a CAC approach focus, you can actually scale up the first-time customers. When the first-time customers start to scale up at 78% year over year, and the return customer rate is now up 45% to a 24% return customer rate, we can see that so far this year, we have $4.7-ish million in returning customers, and this number is going to be compounding. It's going to grow. So when you're looking at how do I scale quickly, it's very easy to scale at a 1.6. It's also when you have a good return customer rate, this number here is going to continuously get bigger and bigger and bigger as this number gets bigger and bigger and bigger. But you want to focus on paying for your first-time customers and then not paying for your return customers. That's where you eat into profitability, and that's where ROAS kind of dies off. Return customers are usually going to have a 10, 15, 20x ROAS. Think of your brand campaigns in Google Ads. If you're running Google Ads and you're running a brand campaign, a lot of those are going to be returning customers, and those returning customers are going to have an amazing ROAS, but you're paying for those existing customers each time. And that's what you want to avoid. If you can avoid paying for those returning customers, then you can increase your profit margin. So focusing on cost of acquire first-time customer, then leaving email and small amount of retargeting, small amount of brand campaign, and not overspending on those existing customers, you can actually start to scale in the right direction. Looking at the overall sales in the last 7 days, we have 15,000 first-time customers and 7,500 returning customers. Now, these returning customer CACs are not exactly true in Northbeam. What I want to mention in how Northbeam works is you take the overall cost, and then what wasn't first-time customer spend here, they did return, simply gets placed over here. It doesn't mean that our returning CAC is 60 and our first-time CAC is 30. It just means that the people that didn't buy, we didn't necessarily target them, but they just took the leftover money that didn't go to first-time customers and apply it to returning customers. So when we're looking at what is our actual new versus returning, we want to have obviously more first-time customers than returning if your media is working well, and then you can start to scale up. Looking at the individual campaigns here, for example, we can see that the Performance Max campaign has a $9 cost for a first-time customer, and the brand is $21. So this Performance Max is actually giving us a good amount of first-time customers. It does deliver a good amount of returning, but this campaign is not actually going after the brand or going after the returning customers. It's not set it as a hard target. So our accrual is a lot less. The cash basis here, cash basis snapshot here instead of Northbeam will simply say if they purchased 1, 2, 5, 7 months ago, 2 years ago, this is actually going to tell you that they came back and purchased again. So I'm happy to see that the return customer transactions are high, knowing that my campaigns are not targeting them. So when you're looking at measuring CAC targets, we can say, okay, so it's $30 in a CAC and a 1.6 first-time customer. Are we actually making any money? What is our actual bottom line? This is where a different tool here called Lifetimely comes into play. Lifetimely is a very, very good app. What this does is it takes all of your actual costs. You upload your, you link all of your media spend to it, your TikTok spend, Facebook, Instagram, Google, and it does a similar effect that what Northbeam does, only it has COGS built in. So we can see that in the last 7 days, $1 million in sales, 457,000 in marketing costs, that delivers you that 2x. And the COGS are 337,000. This is a tool to identify, are we actually making a net profit? And right now, each week, we're producing a $120,000 net profit. So this is after all the internal costs. The internal costs could be taxes. We have our product sold costs, our transaction fees, our fulfillment fees, our marketing costs, our contribution margin for our marketing, our operating expenses. How much does Shopify cost us each month? And what we can see here is, yes, our blended CAC is about $25 to $35. It bounces around in between there. And we already know that our CAC target needs to be $33. So when our CAC target of $33 is hit here, we see 30, 33, 27, 30. We're there or below. So cross-referencing between the Buy the Numbers app based on what I've seen as an AOV multiplied by purchase frequency, and then cross-referencing that to what Lifetimely shows us is our blended CAC that is also replicated in Northbeam. Northbeam is going to be used to media spend. This is going to be the blended results minus COGS. We can see that here, we actually are getting about a 2x. This is our MER, media efficiency ratio, is about a 2x. That's true. But our new customer ROAS is about a 1.5, 1.4. That's also true. So we're looking at our 1.5, 1.4, see how we have a 1.6 media efficiency ratio across all of our channels inside of Northbeam. When that equates here, we actually don't make any profit per first-time customer. That's what we've looked at with this client here is we don't have a large AOV, but we have a large returning customer rate. So we're leaning into that. You can scale very, very easily. And what's great about this is our profit per new customer, that's our actual CAC. Our actual CAC is here. So when you're not looking at ROAS, when you look at this line here, this is what a new customer costs us, a physical out-of-pocket expense. So when you see a profit per new customer, -2, it costs us $2. $3, we made $3. This here essentially says, here's a free customer that is going to return at 33% every year. How many more free customers would you like? That's the question that big companies ask themselves is what is the cost per acquired first-time customer? What is the return rate? And if I lean into this and get $1 million in sales every week, that costs us $500,000, we're going to break even. But then what we don't really look at as marketers sometimes is this right here. What is our repeat customers? We're getting sometimes, let's say on average, 900 sales of our returning customers each week. If you overspend in brand, or if you overspend in remarketing, or if you overspend in your existing customers, which is like the bad performance max setup, or maybe not excluding the existing customers in your Advantage Plus campaigns, for example, you can find out that your repeat customers are high, but you're spending a lot on them. So not only are you now not making any profit first-time customer, you spent all of your marketing dollars on the repeat customers, and now you can't scale. You start spending more money, you see more sales in app, but the client actually doesn't net any more money. And that's the difference that when you're looking at focusing your spend, focus your spend on where the new customers are coming in from, finding out that your CAC is break even and your return customer rate every week is about 1,000 new customers. That at scale means you can simply scale at basically zero cost and keep a very good net profit. So that's where we're looking at the kind of what they call the CMO level math, where we ignore ROAS. We look at media efficiency ratio top line, and then we look at new versus returning customers based on our profit margin, return rate, and purchase frequency, and identify how much can we spend for a new customer and how fast can we scale this. Because if we continue to scale, the compounding effect is in here where we have more and more return customers because we have more new customers. They're returning at 1 in 4. That's actually increasing the frequency. So my return customer rate, my profit is going to continuously grow, and it's not going to cost us anything to get that first time customer. Now, when we're looking at how do we measure individual campaigns, this is where things get a little bit tricky, but you can always kind of focus on top line. So here's what I mean by that. When we do a lot of high volume media spend, the only things that we, not only, but the main things we look at is this here, this line and this line. The individual paths on the, let's say, click only or even the clicks and views are going to be what they call conversion path dependent. Conversion path means did they see a Facebook ad? Did they click on an Instagram ad that was inside of a Advantage Plus? Did they get remarketed by YouTube? And then did they do a brand search? That's an example conversion path that's actually quite common. Or did they start with Performance Max and then get 3 Facebook remarketing clicks and then ended up with a direct conversion or an email conversion or an organic search conversion? So the last one was a non-paid. Those conversion paths are then going to actually dictate how we can identify what campaign earns the more amount of clicks, but also where the first-time customer transactions are actually starting. So this here means that if I'm spending on this area here in Facebook 400 grand and then on Google 50 grand each week, I look at what we call our benchmark CACs. Our benchmark CACs are not set in stone, but what they mean is they're set in stone by channel. What does that mean? Well, on clicks only for Facebook, for example, Facebook is going to do more heavy lifting than what a click attributed conversion is going to see. Click and views are going to get closer and going to show you exactly who is seeing an ad and then maybe doing a brand search. I usually like to use click attributed because I can base my results off of the actual actions and then extrapolate my data from there. What this means is that as long as my $58 CAC in Facebook stays around the same, and my $27 CAC in Google stays about the same, and $140 click attributed CAC in YouTube stays about the same, and TikTok has 105, and then Bing, the fun little brother of search engine marketing, stays about a 30. What this means is that my global CAC will stay around $30. Now, does this mean that Facebook at 58 is inefficient? Absolutely not. It does not mean that. It means that what is going to be click attributed to a channel that's not always a click attributed sale, I find that benchmark CAC. This needs to stay under 60. This needs to stay under 30. This needs to stay under 150. So that's how you're measuring your media spend. And you're measuring it by individual channel CAC basis, not an individual campaign in-app. Because as long as these are staying around the same, I know that my global CAC stays around 30. If I scale this up, this should stay below 30 globally, because the actual customer path is what is going to dictate what channel actually earns the CAC. But the immeasurable, what we can't really see, what we can't attribute spend, that is where we're going to potentially lose out on information that we didn't have before. Unattributed is always going to be there. We just can't see it due to technology limitations. We have influencer, that is then going to come back into brand. We have organic search, that is mostly the brand. The organic search, if you look at Google Search Console, this is mostly branded searches. That's $26,000. That has to be attributed somewhere else. Was it Facebook? Sure. Facebook only had a $58 click attributed CAC. Well, what about the person that saw 6 ads and then opened up a new tab and Google the brand name and did not click on a branded ad because we don't spend too much in brand? That's going to come back through organic search. So all of the stuff that doesn't necessarily have a CAC or doesn't have necessarily a spend associated with it is going to be influenced by our campaigns that do have a spend. So it doesn't mean that the Facebook has a 58. It probably has more like a 30, but it's just coming back in different paths that we can't fully attribute. Or Clicks Only says that, hey, they didn't necessarily click on that channel, but when you increase spend inside of Facebook, it stays around at 60, but you get more organic sales, you get more direct sales, you get more email sales, and your top line stays the same. So that's how you want to measure where your benchmark CACs by channel based on how much click attributed conversions they're going to get, because that is something that's direct response. People are actually taking an action. I can count on that. YouTube is not a click attributed heavy channel. People don't necessarily click on YouTube ads. If you ask yourself, do I run YouTube ads? Yes, I do. Have I ever clicked on a YouTube ad and bought something? Never. You know that it's not going to have a good click attributed CAC, but you know it has a very good halo effect. More people that see you on YouTube, more branded searches, more direct conversions, and more organic searches. So, and more email signups that then lead to conversions. So identifying, I don't need to get YouTube down to a $30 CAC. I need to make sure that this stays under 150, because that is the level that people are clicking on those YouTube campaigns and then purchasing. As long as that stays benchmark, my top line stays safe. So to recap, what you want to do is use the By the Numbers app, take your average order value over a 3 to 6 month time period, a long enough time period that you are comfortable with, compare that to the previous period to make sure it doesn't change so you can set your numbers to it, multiply that by your purchase frequency, and then identify your global CAC, see where your global CAC is here, and then optimize your individual campaigns to remove the campaigns that are getting just a way too high click attributed CAC that shouldn't. Optimize those campaigns, cross-reference that to the lifetime link to make sure that the client's net profit is good. And sometimes you'll find out that a 1.6 media efficiency ratio on first-time customers will deliver you a 6-figure net profit week.
That was a lot in 25 minutes. Guys are blowing up right now in the chat in the room. The good news is it's all recorded. It's going to be uploaded on our channel, so you can listen to it at 0.5x speed and put everything together. There's a couple of good questions in the chat. Let's fire. Layla just sent one. How do you benchmark the CAC per channel? So I think you alluded to it, but how do you set those goals?
Yeah, so that's what's interesting is when it's all about the measuring of what you're going to try to identify that is appropriate for that channel. YouTube is going to naturally have a higher CAC. Facebook is going to have a little bit lower CAC. Google's going to have the best CAC because usually Google's where their branded campaigns are in. So what you want to look at is the flow of that traffic and look at your customer paths inside of Northbeam and see what is always typically the first click and where do they usually end, and then measure accordingly. First click is usually a prospecting campaign on Facebook that helps brand, measure accordingly. So those benchmark CACs are more of like, make sure these don't change rather than how do I take a blanket, 1.6 MER and apply that to everywhere. It doesn't work like that.
No, for sure. Yeah, it's definitely different per channel. A good one from Annie. That's like that's the bane of the existence of many advertisers. Any strategy when you have too many competitors bidding on your branded keywords?
Yeah. So I actually use manual CPC without eCPC inside of Google. The reason why is eCPC means it's going to optimize for conversions or conversion value. But if you use manual CPC, you don't let Google simply over and hyperinflate your CPC because it's going to have a best chance of getting conversion. It's your brand. They're going to convert there anyway. So what you want to do is use non-eCPC, just use a manual CPC and then bid lower at first and then check your absolute top impression share. If you're above 80, you're fine. You can actually earn a number one position with $1 where your competitors will have to spend 7 or 8 or 9 to overtake you. Your quality score is going to be so high. Don't think that you need to compete by dollar per dollar with your competitors. Look at absolute top search impression share, which means the number one, and then adjust the bids accordingly to make sure it's above 80 and you're covered.
That's awesome. I think that's something that everybody can take back today and go in their Google Ads account and set this. If that's not your current setting on your brand campaigns, like go do that right now. You'll save money and you'll piss off your competition. Another quick one. How good are the platforms at excluding returning customers? And maybe like so that's not necessarily super clear, but let's tie in Performance Max in that. Yeah. So let's tie in like how do you like split different levels of Performance Max because it's so good at like bottom of funnel stuff and returning customers. So how do you manage that in Google?
Yeah, so Performance Max is actually fairly poor at excluding the existing customers. You can exclude the branded terms inside of Performance Max, doesn't really help too much. And you can also bid only for new customers. We've seen that what ended up happening is your volume kind of dips down, but when cross-referencing with Northbeam that's hooked up to like Shopify's API that gives you the actual data, it doesn't really work. We've seen like a 50-50 go to like a 59, maybe 60% new customers. It's not just like an only new customer. Google is going to say, we're not sure, and then get them anyway because it has a really good ROAS and really good CPA. So know that Performance Max is going to be trying to get sales wherever it can, and it's up to you to kind of police it, but it's going to sneak existing customer sales every single time it can.
Yeah, that's what Performance Max is great at. It's going to return you a fantastic CPA every time, but it's definitely grabbing bottom of funnel. And the opposite of that's going to be our last question is how can we find the first impact or the first touch that the user received if like most of the attribution that this advertiser is looking at is like last click.
Yeah, I'd absolutely look at the customer paths here. And then what I would say is looking at where the revenue is descending. Look at what is a lot of times the first customer path here. You're going to go all the way down into like the craziest type of paths where you're seeing like 12, 30, 40, 50 clicks in that path. But a click attributed path, usually when you see good click attributed path, the conversions are starting here. This also means that is doing more in view if it's Facebook, for example. So that's why like you click attributed can be extrapolated to more views, but doesn't work the other way. So my opinion is look at those customer paths, find out where the common touch points between Facebook and Google are. You can overlay the filter that says first touch points Facebook, second touch points Google, and then say, man, it's always this campaign, then brand, then this Facebook, then this brand, or this Instagram, then this brand. And that's where you're going to see that if you start to crank up those Facebook and Instagram campaigns, your brand is going to pick up more new customers because that's where people come when they first buy something. They Google the brand and they become a new customer, but that's where they end up.
That's awesome. And yeah, in a nutshell, that's what Northbeam does. So we're able to track every single touch points in the customer journey and then help you determine what attribution models are the best fitting for you to scale your brand. But John, that was extremely insightful. Thank you so much for joining us. Can't wait to create more content together. You're definitely the bomb. Like you got so much love in the chat. And there's a lot of people also asking for one-on-one consultations. So I definitely suggest that you drop your email or your consultation booking link in there, and you might get some new customers today.
Awesome. Yeah, I really appreciate it. I'll drop my my email here in the chat, and then there we go. And then yeah, that's perfect.
Thank you.
I really appreciate everyone.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, everyone.